Every Canadian kid waited for it. The Eaton's Christmas catalog, thick as a phone book, packed with toys, model trains, and dolls. You'd flip through it with a pencil in hand, circling every dream you couldn't afford. For a few weeks every winter, those glossy pages were pure magic. Before the big box stores and self-checkouts, there was Dominion. Wide aisles, chrome carts, and that distinct grocery store chill. Mom would grab a cart, and you'd sneak off to the cereal aisle, hoping for the one with a toy inside. The slogan said it best, mainly because of the meat. Before Home Depot or Rona, Canadians built their dreams with beaver lumber, the smell of sawdust and varnish, the creak of the wooden floor, and the friendly guy behind the counter who always knew your dad by name. Every town had one, and every backyard project started there. Before Walmart rolled in, there was Woolco, the red and white department store that had everything. Cheap socks, plastic toys, and the smell of popcorn from the snack bar. Saturday afternoons meant wandering those aisles under flickering fluorescent lights. You didn't just shop there, you lived a little there. A shopping experience like no other, and not always in a good way. You'd flip through a catalog, write down a code, hand it to the clerk, then wait as they vanished into a mysterious back room. Sometimes your item came out. Sometimes you just got a shrug. But that's how Canadians shopped, with patience and a little hope. Remember when television actually went to sleep? After midnight, the station would play "O Canada," then fade to that rainbow test pattern, with that steady hum filling the room. If you stayed up late enough, you could almost feel the whole country shutting down for the night. Before remotes, before streaming, you had to get up and turn that UHF dial by hand. Someone would shout from the couch, "Hold it right there," as you fiddled with the antenna, trying to stop the snowstorm on the screen. Half the time, watching TV was more about teamwork than entertainment. Rainy afternoons meant one thing, spirograph, a plastic kit, a few colored pens, and you were an artist in your own living room. Those swirling circles and hypnotic patterns decorated every fridge door from coast to coast. Every Canadian bathroom had one, that bright blue bottle of baby shampoo. No more tears, it promised. You'd squeeze too much, make a mountain of bubbles, and somehow that clean, gentle scent smelled like safety, like childhood itself. Long before the plastic wrappers, Lifesavers came in shiny metal tins. You'd pop the lid, and that sweet, fruity smell would hit you. Cherry, lime, orange, pineapple, and lemon. Each one a tiny piece of happiness. Those tins rattled around in every glove box across the country. Every mall had one, that tiny booth tucked beside the arcade or the washrooms. You'd squeeze in with your friends, drop in a few coins, and wait for that flash of light. 4 little black and white pictures would slide out, grainy, crooked, and perfect. Some of those strips are still tucked away in old wallets today. Long drives across Canada meant spotting those Dominion Bridge billboards. Bold red letters, simple pride, a symbol of Canadian industry. They reminded us that we built big things here. Bridges, railways, skylines. Every sign felt like a quiet nod to the strength of the country itself. Before buttons and electronics, every window had a crank. Kids fought for the front seat just to roll it down on summer drives. That little handle clicked as you turned it, and somehow that sound was the soundtrack of every road trip. Back before GPS, there was adventure and a glove box full of husky road maps. Dad would unfold one across the dashboard, tracing highways with his finger while Mom called out turns. Those paper maps weren't just directions. They were invitations to explore. In the middle of a Canadian winter, you could spot those bright snowmobile suits a mile away, thick padding, zippers that always stuck, and rainbow stripes running down the sleeves. Every kid looked like a walking sunrise, and you couldn't play outside without one. Every Canadian family seemed to have one, that long, lumbering station wagon with fake wood on the sides. The back seat faced backward, and kids waved at the cars behind them on long road trips. No seat belts, no air conditioning, just laughter, wind, and the smell of Dad's coffee in the front seat. Every school kid carried one, a brightly colored vinyl lunchbox. Superman, Scooby-Doo, the Friendly Giant, heroes printed right on the lid. Inside, a thermos of milk, a bologna sandwich, and maybe a cookie from Mom. Those lunchboxes were badges of honor. Before selfies, before smartphones, there was the Polaroid. You'd click the button, wait for that whir, and out came a square photo that slowly faded into life. Everyone huddled around, shaking it like a magic trick. Instant memories, real ones, you could hold in your hand. Music sounded different back then, and 8-track tapes had a rhythm all their own. You'd hear that clunk as it switched tracks mid-song, and nobody cared. In the car or the basement stereo, those chunky tapes were the heartbeat of the 70s. Before playlists and streaming, we stacked vinyl records one on top of another. The arm would lift, drop, and the music would flow on. A little static, a few scratches, but every song had warmth. It wasn't just sound, it was a ritual. Every living room had them, bright orange plastic TV trays that folded out beside the couch. They wobbled under the weight of a Salisbury steak dinner with a cold glass of milk and a little pool of gravy. You'd sit cross-legged on shag carpet, watching The Beachcombers or Hockey Night in Canada. That tray wasn't just for food. It was your ticket to comfort. They weren't just televisions. They were furniture. Huge wooden consoles with polished cabinets, a TV in the middle, and a record player hidden under the lid. When you turned one on, the tubes glowed, the screen flickered, and the whole room felt alive. Before cell phones and touch screens, we had rotary dials. You'd stick your finger in the hole, spin, and wait for it to whir back. Calling long distance felt like a special event, and if you messed up one number, you had to start all over again. Before cell phones, every corner store and gas station had a payphone. Some were tucked inside little wooden booths, smelling faintly of cigarettes and winter coats. You'd drop a dime, dial home, and hope someone answered before your time ran out. The sound of typing was once the sound of progress. Click-clack-ding, and a sharp return of the carriage. You'd smudge your fingers with ink ribbons and layer carbon paper to make a copy. Each page felt earned, a little piece of effort in every letter. Every school had one, the mimeograph machine, rumbling in the corner of the staff room. Teachers handed out fresh worksheets, still damp and smelling of ink. That sweet chemical scent filled the hallway, and every kid took a deep breath like it was some kind of secret treat. When the first indoor malls opened, it felt like the future. Crestwood, Yorkdale, Scarborough Town Center, all warm, bright, and buzzing with weekend crowds. You could shop, eat, and people watch for hours without stepping outside. For a generation, the mall became the new town square. 71. Drive-in movie theaters on summer nights. Nothing said summer like a drive-in movie. Families packed into station wagons, windows rolled down, popcorn in paper bags. The movie flickered under the stars, and the kids fell asleep before the second feature even started. It wasn't just a film, it was an evening together. On long road trips, you knew you were safe when you saw that wagon wheel sign. A cozy stop for coffee, burgers, and pie, always with friendly faces and the smell of home cooking. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like home halfway across the country. Every old hockey rink had that smell: cold ice, wet gear, and the faint, sweet scent of pipe tobacco. Dads in parkas, pacing behind the boards, nursing a thermos and cheering through the smoke. It was the smell of small-town Canada and the sound of a whole community in motion. Before scrolling feeds and breaking news alerts, we had Maclean's and Chatelaine. You'd see them stacked on every coffee table, their glossy covers filled with stories of real Canadians. Politics, recipes, pop stars, those magazines captured who we were as a country. That opening theme, steady, confident, and proud. When you heard that music, you knew it was time to sit down and listen. The CBC News theme was more than sound. It was a heartbeat of Canadian evenings. It made the news feel like an event. Before cans took over the fridge, there were stubby bottles, short, round, and proudly Canadian. Labatt's Blue, Molson Export, names that echoed across backyard barbecues and hockey nights. The pop of the cap, the clink of the glass, that was the sound of the weekend. Every morning you'd hear the soft clink of glass on the porch. The milkman left bottles cold from the morning air, and you'd rush out before the cream froze on top. Thick glass, silver caps, and that feeling of trust, when the world was small enough that milk just showed up. Long before online contests, we had Coke caps. You'd twist one off and check the inside, hoping to see you win, but always reading, "Please play again." We never gave up, though, because every bottle was a new chance at luck. Every kitchen shelf had a few of them, tiny porcelain animals from boxes of red rose tea. Lions, bunnies, and little birds lined up beside the sugar bowl like treasures. They were simple, delicate things, but they made every cup of tea feel a little more special. Thick, warm, and proudly Canadian, the Hudson's Bay Point blanket was a winter staple. White wool with green, red, yellow, and blue stripes, folded at the foot of the bed or packed for the cottage. It wasn't just a blanket. It was a piece of our heritage. Even a decade later, you could still spot them. Mugs, maps, and postcards from Expo 67. They sat proudly on bookshelves and mantels, reminders of the time Canada invited the world to Montreal. Those souvenirs weren't just trinkets. They were symbols of optimism and pride. Every office wall and kitchen had one. A CP rail calendar, majestic mountain photos, shiny red locomotives, and that proud maple leaf logo. It wasn't just advertising, it was art that celebrated a country built on rails. If you were lucky enough to see it roll through town, you never forgot it, the Canadian Centennial Train. A traveling museum of our history and hopes, it carried the spirit of a young, confident nation. For every child who stepped aboard, it felt like the future was right there, waiting on the tracks. Before online banking and ATMs, many Canadians kept their savings at the local post office. You'd fill out a small booklet, hand it to the clerk, and they'd stamp it with care, a record of trust in ink and paper. It was slow, simple, and built on something we've almost forgotten: patience. You'd walk into the rink, and before you even saw the ice, you'd hear that sound, the hiss and grind of metal on stone. A man in a wool cap behind the counter, sparks flying, tuning each blade like it was an art. That sound meant one thing: hockey night was coming. Every classroom had that old film projector, clattering softly as the film rolled through. Teachers dimmed the lights, and those grainy voices filled the room. The soft click of each frame changing was hypnotic. For 10 minutes, learning felt like television. Before Air Canada ruled the skies, there was CP Air and Wardair, bright orange planes, silver wings, and maple leaf pride. They gave out postcards, metal pins, even real meals on real plates. Flying wasn't just travel back then. It was an occasion. You'd drop off your film at the corner drugstore and wait a week like it was forever. When those yellow envelopes finally came back, you'd flip through each photo, laughing, smiling, remembering. They smelled faintly of chemicals and happiness, real memories, printed for keeps. Before automatic doors and buttons everywhere, some department stores had real elevator attendants. They wore uniforms and white gloves, calling out, "Second floor, ladies' wear and linens." The hum of the lift, the smell of perfume and new fabric, it all felt fancy, even if you were just going up one floor. There's a sound only Canadians know. That crisp crack of ice under your boots on a January morning. You'd walk to school, breath hanging in the air, mittens stiff with frost, and the world perfectly still. It wasn't just cold, it was the sound of home in winter. Every year, downtown streets filled with magic. Floats rolled past cheering crowds, marching bands played carols, and families lined the sidewalks with hot chocolate in hand. The Eaton's Santa Claus Parade wasn't just an event, it was the start of Christmas in Canada. Before plastic bins and dryers, garbage cans clanged in the alley and laundry flapped on the line. Those metal lids rattled in the wind, and wooden clothespins left little marks on every sheet. It was noisy, simple, and honest, the sound of everyday life. Every September you could smell it before you even reached the classroom. Freshly waxed floors, shining under fluorescent lights. Your shoes squeaked as you walked down the hall, and somehow that smell meant a new beginning. Every generation remembers it differently, but we all remember it. Before apps and alerts, news came by bicycle. Kids pedaled through every neighborhood at dawn, slinging rolled-up papers that hit porches with a soft thump. Rain, snow, or sun, they showed up because people were counting on them. In 1967, every pocket jingled with pride. Special centennial coins, with loons, lynxes, and wolves, reminded Canadians who we were. Even in the 70s, you'd spot one and smile, a tiny piece of history still in circulation. Winter fashion in the 70s was loud and proud. Neon ski pants pulled up to your ribs, and toques with pom-poms the size of baseballs. Families posed for photos in matching snow gear, looking like Technicolor marshmallows and loving every minute of it. Libraries were quiet sanctuaries, soft carpet, wooden tables, and the unmistakable scent of old paper. You'd flip through a book, the pages whispering secrets, and lose yourself for an afternoon. That smell, a mix of dust and ink, was the perfume of imagination. Before digital flashes, we had little blue flash cubes that popped and spun after every photo. The burst of light made everyone blink, and the faint smell of ozone filled the room. Family photos were unpredictable, but always full of love and laughter. In every home, there was that one drawer, stuffed with wooden spoons, whisks, and faded recipe cards. Each spoon told a story. Soup stirred, sauces spilled, cookies baked for neighbors. It wasn't just a utensil drawer, it was a time capsule of family life. And every night just before the news, Canadians everywhere heard it. The long dash, the sound that marked the official time across the nation. It was simple, steady, and unmistakable. For generations, that tone meant reliability and a quiet reminder that wherever you were in Canada, we were all right on time.